It is July 1st. It's a new month, and it is Canada Day. Happy Canada Day, Canadians. And in celebration, it is a Prez Free Zone. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez today on Monday. He will be back tomorrow on Tuesday, and joined by Teddy Covers, my co-host as always. And look, 3 baseball games. We had MLB first pitch on at an earlier time, starting today, 11 a.m. Eastern, so you can watch the replay here right after the show. 3 MLB games, and we're going to break all 3 down here on this show as well, but also talk some WNBA and some soccer, and also NFL, because football is right around the corner. Marco D'Angelo is going to lead us off with a WNBA game, and also the Astros and Blue Jays, that daytime game for Canada Day. Teddy's going to talk MLB overs and how they've been making some money, and also Bryan Power is going to look at Copa America and Euro Cup, a little doubleheader there in soccer. And don't forget, the NFL, as it says, around the corner. Teddy's got a season win in the AFC for you, so you don't want to miss that in the big game breakdown. And then we finish it off with Adam Trigger, who's going to look at the other 2 baseball games. Teddy covers New York Mets against my Washington Nationals, nobody's Colorado Rockies against somebody's Milwaukee Brewers. And before we get to that, Teddy, I want to let everybody know also we have a July 4th special, 7 days for just $49 this week. It's starting right now. It's good all week long. You can pick it up anytime and get 7 straight days and nights of all sports from any capper at WagerTalk.com for just $49, including one of the co-founders of WagerTalk.com, Marco D'Angelo. Marco, welcome to the show. Happy Canada Day, my friend.
You know what? I was never a fan of this till you realized we don't get Prez on Canada Day. So I'm a big fan of Canada Day.
Best day of the year. Let's start with some WNBA for tonight. Look at the Wager Talk live odds screen right now. I see the Seattle Storm 11.5-point home favorites against the Dallas Wings. Total 167.5. What do you want to do with Dallas at Seattle?
Well, Teddy, this is one of those ones where there's no question Seattle is the much better team over Dallas. They just played the other night. They won on Saturday by 21 points. So why in the world am I looking at Dallas tonight, 2 days later in a rematch? What's going to be different? Well, if you remember last Thursday, we did on your show here, we had Dallas when they upset Minnesota. They broke their 11-game losing streak. And I've told you, this year I've had a lot of success in the WNBA, and it's been finding spots on the schedule where situations where it could be a flat spot for one team or a big effort for another. And this is one of those games, Teddy, that I'm looking at it. I'm not a fan of what the WNBA has done. We've seen the NBA do it. We never saw it until COVID, where they would play 2 games in the same city back to back. You never see that other than when you're in the playoffs, but we've seen it the last few years. And the WNBA is doing it simply because of travel and cuts down on expenses, of course, as well. So we get Dallas playing a second game here. Now, Seattle on Saturday, they were in a really juicy spot because they had all of the forewarning not to look past Dallas, because Dallas just beat Minnesota 2 days earlier. And Minnesota was the team that just won the Commissioner's Cup, and that's why we went against them with Dallas on Thursday. Now it was Dallas traveling to Seattle cross country to play a game against one of the most improved teams in the WNBA this year, the Seattle Storm. Well, they got annihilated. So now Seattle, if they were focused for that game on Saturday because of the upset of Minnesota, do you think they're going to be as focused tonight? They absolutely steamrolled them. And what do they got coming up on deck? Well, when you're looking for a spot, you want to see who they just played and who they got coming up. They've got back-to-back games coming up in Chicago against the the Sky with Angel Reese and company. Back-to-back in Chicago. If that wasn't enough, followed by a trip here to Vegas to play the back-to-back defending champs. This is a spot where I think that Dallas can hang around in this game, getting the big number. And the odds makers telling me something too. Usually you're going to see a line adjustment. This is what the line was the other night, and they won by 21. If a team just won by 21 and they were laying 11 and a half on Saturday, shouldn't they be laying a little bit more tonight? I think we're seeing enough sharp money on the Dallas side agreeing with me, and I'm going to ride it. I'm taking Dallas plus the points, And Teddy, I'm only playing the spot, my friend.
So you watch as much NBA as anyone that I know. You know, you legitimately like the sport. You watch the sport. You watch the sport even when you're not going to your Aces games where you have season tickets. Here's my question. Dallas, just looking at their numbers, their defense is god-awful. You know, we saw Seattle get whatever they wanted last time out, including 30 free throw attempts, in which Dallas made 28 of them. A good free throw shooting team. Which Seattle made 28 of them, I should say. When you talk about a dismal defensive team, a team that's given up 90 game after game after game, even if it's the spot, isn't their opponent just going to have easy shots and be able to pull away? I mean, or is this a game where what answers does Dallas have on the floor besides the spot?
Well, again, it's like the carbon copy whenever, you interrogated me on Thursday. It's the same thing. If they play these two teams 10 times, Seattle's probably going to win 8 of the 10 games, okay, and cover most of them. But this is one of those ones where if you're Seattle, how do you have that same intensity coming in here when you steamrolled this team by 21? And granted, Dallas went to Seattle on Saturday from Thursday to Saturday. Now they've got to stay in the same city for a couple days. I think they're the ones that go to the drawing board, get the chalkboard going, change some X's and O's and make adjustments. If you're Seattle, what adjustments do you make? Everything worked on Saturday. You just go out there and do it again. Again, this is one of those ones where you just have to kind of hold your nose when you go to the window or put on some dark sunglasses so nobody recognizes you're betting a shitty team, catching points, but I'm playing the spot, and I can't justify it any other way than that, my friend. But we know the point spread is the equalizer, and that's why it is. But I would throw it back to you, Teddy. Why do you think we don't see an uptick in this line as easily as Seattle did everything on Saturday?
Because the power rating numbers for the two teams didn't change all that much off of one game.
Okay.
I mean, it's, you know how these lines are created: power rating team A, power rating team B, home court advantage, and computer spit out a number, and they'll adjust it. And here's a situation where, off of the one game, the markets didn't make big adjustments for either team. So I'm not surprised the number is right near where it was for the previous matchup. Steve?
Yeah, Mark, I was going to say, actually, you can make an argument that the line in hindsight should have been 13 or 14 or 23 or whatever the final margin was in the game on Saturday, right? So if it was really maybe supposed to be 13 or 14, they have bumped it down because the situation probably does favor Dallas now. This is an angle we see in the NBA occasionally now when they do back-to-backs. And you and I think alike. You and I are kind of contrarian situational handicappers at heart. And we always look to zig and zag on those back-to-back home series, over-under versus under-over, and same thing here. So I would agree with you. This is one of those situations where the ugly dog might have some value just based on the setup. I want to ask you real quick before we get to the baseball game, though. You follow your Las Vegas Aces. My Las Vegas Aces, still one of the better sporting events I went to a couple years ago. Went to that playoff game. Sue Bird's final game, by the way. Saw them play Seattle a couple summers ago. Aces, one of the bigger money burners right now. They're just 6-10 against the spread, and that's mainly because they're off to a mediocre 10-6 straight up start. They're only third in the Western Conference. You do a weekly radio hit, I believe, still for the WNBA. I'm a season ticket holder. What's your take on the Aces? Are they regressing this year? Has something changed?
Well, it's real simple. And to quote Aaron Rodgers, like he said, relax. And the whole thing has been Chelsea Gray had been out of the lineup. She returned 3 games ago, and ironically, they're 3-0 since she's back in the lineup. She is the point guard. She is the true quarterback of this team. She makes every other player on the team better with the way she dishes the ball. And what had happened is you had Kelsey Plum and Jackie Young splitting time at point guard. Neither one of them is a true point guard, and it was hurting their offensive game. Now they're back. Everybody's intact. And Chelsea Gray, the other part with her, Saturday, she had her best game of the season, scored 20 points. She got her legs back. It was a couple games trying to get that shot to go. They will be just fine. And don't be surprised if you see an 8, 9, or 10-game winning streak rolled off by the back-to-back champs.
I like your little bonus WNBA there from Marco D'Angelo saying the Aces might be a play-on team. And by the way, when I went to those games 2 years ago, my daughter's favorite player instantly after the first game was Chelsea Gray, very underrated guard who would be the best player on a lot of other teams. is kind of third fiddle there behind Asia Wilson and Kelsey Plum. And don't forget, Plum had the all-time scoring record until Caitlin Clark beat it recently for college basketball. So that is a stacked team indeed. Marco, we saw that special there. Get the rest of WNBA for free with you. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But let's look at a daytime baseball game. It is Canada Day, and that is why the Blue Jays are playing this afternoon on MLB Network. Houston at Toronto. What are you doing with this one? North of the border.
Yeah, I'm going to go against the Canadian team on Canada Day. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I'm only going to go first 5 innings. So if they want to rally late, I'm fine with that. I got no problems. Looking at this one, and I just think this is an absolute pitching mismatch, and the two teams are just, not playing on the same level. You talk about the Astros. All season long, we were asking what's wrong with the Astros, and, I blamed a lot of it on Dusty Baker not being there anymore. But however you want to look at it, whoever you want to blame, right now the Astros are playing their best baseball of the season. They've won 9 of their last 10 games, and they are absolutely pounding the baseball. 69 runs in the last 10 games. Toronto, they're 3-2 their last 5 games, but prior to that 3-2 stretch, they had lost 7 games in a row, and their pitching had been getting annihilated. This is a tired bullpen. The starters were getting lit up. The relievers were getting lit up. They didn't have a lot of depth in the bullpen because of injuries, and that takes its toll on a team. I'm looking at the pitching matchup here. We got Hunter Brown going for Houston, and he has been on an absolute roll. His last 7 starts, he's allowed a grand total of 7 runs, and he's gone 6 or more innings in all 7 of those starts. His strikeout to walk ratio, the last 3 starts, 22-3. And it's a simple stat. It's old school stat. But when you're getting the strikeouts and you're not walking anybody, that tells me you got full command of your pitches. You're fooling the hitters. And I am going to ride him against Rodriguez for Toronto, who in his last outing lasted only an inning and a third, got rocked for 5 runs, 4 of them earned. I just don't like the pitching matchup. I'm going to take Houston first 5. I expect Brown to outpitch Rodriguez. That's the way I'm going. After the 5th inning, anything can happen. I don't care.
Now, Toronto's been an over machine of late. I think 7 straight overs for the Blue Jays. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. We get to what bettors learned, or just a few minutes we get to what bettors learned. But certainly this lineup has been clicking. They scored 9 or more 3 times their last 5 ball games. It's an offense that has underachieved most of the season that has really shown signs of breaking out. We look at Hunter Brown, and he does have a home-road dichotomy. His road ERA is about 5 still. I know he's pitched very well of late, but he's also pitched, he's had the White Sox, he's had the A's, he's had some lesser opponents as well during this span. But do we worry at all that Toronto's offense continues to click and or Brown continues to struggle on the highway? Or is this pitcher's in A+ form and the other pitcher isn't? And it's just that simple. So tell me about that. Talk about that for a minute, Marco.
Hunter Brown has had a couple bad outings on the road, and they were bad situation play. I mean, there's no question, and it's inflated that number. I'm looking at current form, and current form is it doesn't matter if he's been home or away. Right now, he is dealing it. So I'm going to go with the current form over the misleading number from earlier in the season with Hunter Brown. And yes, Toronto's been scoring a lot of runs, but they've been giving up a lot of runs as well. And because that bullpen is been worked over for Toronto, Teddy, I also think that forces them sometimes to try to squeeze an extra inning out of the starter to try to save the bullpen. And, that's a benefit to me if you're trying to squeeze an extra inning out of Rodriguez, given the Houston lineup, the way they're playing right now and the way they're scoring, another at bat against him. So first 5, to me, Brown is way head and shoulders above Rodriguez, and I'll take that mismatch.
Yeah, and Marco, fading the Blue Jays even on Canada Day hasn't been a bad move this season because they're one of the biggest money burners in baseball. In fact, only one team has lost more than 12.5 units, and that's the White Sox, who have been just god-awful. But the Blue Jays at minus 12.5 units up there with the A's, the Rangers, also the Marlins. So they've been a huge money burner, and you are fading them again in the first 5 today. This is a daytime game, 3:40 Eastern early start Monday afternoon, MLB Network. All right, Mark, I've talked a little baseball with you. We talked a little WNBA, and boy, do you know WNBA. Gave us a little bonus play-on team there with your Las Vegas Aces. You're going for your 11th straight WNBA winner in a row. Get that for $25 tonight, or get it for free when you buy the rest of your MLB season. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you got a couple of ways to go tonight. You could pick up the rest of the baseball season, which we discounted $100 down to $469, and we're throwing in all of my WNBA plays with that. Or do the site-wide special right now, 7 days for $49. Get everything. Jump on board that good offer as well. So either way, I would highly recommend jumping on that WNBA play tonight as we go for 11 in a row. It's been a great WNBA season. I don't release a lot of plays. I pick my spots. We've only had 12 plays this year in the WNBA. Nice 11-1 record. We started out 1-1, and then we rolled off 10 in a row, going for number 11 tonight. Join me over on my homepage at WTBuzz/MD.
Selectivity pays, man. 11th straight. He started 1-1. And he's won 10 straight since. 11-1 on the WNBA season for Marco D'Angelo. You can get that play tonight, or you can, of course, get it for free with his baseball for the rest of the season. Once again, WT.buzz/MD. He's not a medical doctor, but he plays one here on WagerTalk TV. Teddy, we're going to talk more baseball a little bit later in the show with Adam Trigger. He's going to look at the Mets, Nationals, Rockies, Brewers. We have all 3 games covered in depth here on WagerTalk today for baseball. Also going to talk a couple soccer games with Bryan Power. Just a reminder, starting today, July 1st, MLB First Pitch is earlier now, live at 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday here on the network. A little warm-up before Wager Talk today at noon Eastern every day, Monday through Friday. Of course, if you missed the live show earlier today, it's never too late to watch the replay. It's 24/7 here on Wager Talk TV. And Teddy, let's talk a little bit more baseball with you. You're going to look at an NFL futures here later in Big Game Breakdown. But for what bettors learn, you want to talk about MLB overs this weekend and in general. You mentioned the Blue Jays overrun. What are your thoughts on MLB overs right now?
So it kind of happens like clockwork. Sometime in the month of June or into July, we see the first month or two of the MLB season, and this year certainly no exception. Everyone's worried. Scoring is down. Batting average is down. It's freaking hard to hit major league pitching, even with the rules changes. Everyone's worried about the baseballs not being juiced enough. The home runs are down. Uh-oh. And then the weather gets hot. What happened this weekend? Overs 19-10 with a push. 66% overs for the weekend. We saw a run of overs last week as well. And let's not forget, MLB games are not independent of one another, particularly when it comes to totals. Overs beget more overs. You have hot lineups. You have worn down bullpens. They don't disappear into thin air. Unders beget more unders. When you have a cold lineup and a fresh bullpen, it can stay that way for weeks on end. So when teams start to streak with their totals, which tends to happen around this time of year, I like to pay attention, close attention. Let's talk about some of these streaks. Blue Jays, 7-0 to the over, their last 7. Padres, 9-1 to the over, their last 10. The only under came in an early start game back east. Yankees, 12-2 to the over, their last 14. Mets, 9-3 to the over, their last 12. Red Sox, 12-4 to the over, last 16. You're seeing them on the other end of the spectrum as well. Pirates can't hit a lick. Their pitching's been great, 9-3 to the under. The Braves, the pitching's been great, can't hit a lick, 7-1 to the under. My clients and I have done very well with totals in recent weeks. I've won my last 7 MLB totals. It's a great time of year to be betting totals, in my opinion. Got one today. Oh, it's a 5% big ticket play. Only had one for the entire month of June. It was a winner. Now we got one for the month of July. I expect it to win as well. You can get that play right now, $35 just for the play. I wouldn't. Take advantage of the 7-day for $7 all access pass. You can get the entire week. Just $49 is our 4th of July special. Get that now at WagerTalk.com, WT.buzz/TC, and pay attention to these streaking totals at this time of the year. They can streak indefinitely. So sometimes these streaks, as they have been for the last week or two, are worth riding for more than one game. Steve, that's what I learned this weekend. Back to you, my friend.
Teddy Covers loves to streak, and it's always more comfortable to streak in the summer when it's warm outside than when in frigid conditions in the wintertime. And Teddy, I got to give you some props also. I remember, what was it, a decade ago or so? You had one of the most monster runs ever in baseball. What was it, like 42-12 or something? I know you were playing a lot of totals during that run, and you were riding a lot of streaks as well with similar teams, correct?
And it's this time of year, dude. For whatever reason, it's this time of year, heading into the All-Star break, that things tend to click for me in baseball. And it's been a great run for the last week, and we'll see if we can do it again tonight.
Yeah, and there's also other reasons it works, too. Every team has now played over 82 games, so we're past the halfway point. The baseball all-star game is not the halfway point. We're already there. And, the odds makers are not going to make drastic adjustments when teams have played 80-plus games. The pitching numbers are there. The offensive numbers are there. So like you said, what you always want to look is to find a subset that's different than what the odds makers are using. And I fully agree with you. I think offensive momentum is vastly underrated in baseball. I've talked about that for years here on the show. The offensive lineup is the same 8 or 9 guys consistently every day, whereas the bullpen is often different. The starting pitcher is always different. And I think that's the one thing that gets lost, is the odds makers still set the odds based on the starting pitcher very heavy, and you can kind of sneak in and find some current form over the overall seasonal numbers. And once again, Teddy's got a strong 5%er going tonight for 35, or get the next 6 days and nights for just $14 more. That's basically like $2 Tuesday for every play the rest of the week from Teddy Covers or any other capper, including myself, Steve Merrill, or our next guest, Bryan Power. He looks Canadian, but he's American. He's close. Adam Trigger's joining us next, his good buddy. They're both very close to the border, Ohio and New York. But we're Canadian-free here on Canada Day. We felt that was the right thing to do, Bryan. So welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on. We're going to talk some soccer. I had to break it up with just 3 baseball games today. And you are one of our soccer experts. So once again, you get that 7-day all sports. You're getting a lot of baseball, WNBA, but if you want some soccer, get Bryan as well. And Bryan, let's start with Copa America, because the USA is playing Uruguay. What are you doing with this one?
Yeah, Steve. So it's been a great run in soccer. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But, this is the final match of the group stage. So the various permutations and scenarios for advancing to the knockout round, obviously central to handicap. Let's go through those here. The U.S. clearly up against it after the 2-1 loss to Panama. They're still technically second right now in Group C because of goal differential. But they're going to need to at least match Panama's result against Bolivia tonight. That match takes place at the same time as the U.S. and Uruguay. The U.S. and Panama, even right now, level 3 points apiece. So whoever has the better result tonight is advancing to the knockout stage. For those who may be unaware, top 2 in every group go to the knockout stage. And given how horrific Bolivia has been so far in this tournament, Panama is likely to beat them. So the U.S. is probably going to need to beat Uruguay in order to advance, and hope Panama doesn't overturn the current goal differential deficit. And the problem for the U.S., guys, beating Uruguay is not an easy thing to do. I think this is the second best team in the entire Copa America, quite frankly, behind Argentina, obviously the rightful favorite. Uruguay scored the most goals of any team through two matches. They've scored 8 goals. They beat Panama 3-1. They beat Bolivia 5-0. Now, I know neither of you handicap soccer, but you're both very smart individuals, and you understand how certain situations affect lines. And when I look at this, Steve and Teddy, in my opinion, there is a clear must-win tax on the U.S. because odds makers know that everyone knows the U.S. probably has to win here. And the idea they'd be slight favorites over Uruguay in the 3-way line is just crazy to me. I don't think anyone thinks the U.S. is the better side here. If this were the first or second group match, Uruguay would be favored on the 3-way line. And as we know, you guys know, no matter the sport, must win does not equal will win. And I think because the U.S. is in the must-win situation, it sets up a good situation where we can fade them. I'm taking Uruguay, draw no bet, as I've talked about on the show in the past. That's different from the 3-way line because in case of a draw, our bet pushes rather than loses. A little insurance there. I know Uruguay's without the manager. He was suspended because they came out a little late after halftime. Weird rule in the Copa America, but it is what it is. I don't think it matters, though, because we've got the better players. I still expect Uruguay to be aggressive. That's how they play. And remember, the U.S., they could be turning to a backup goalkeeper again because Matt Turner got hurt last time out. He's questionable as of press time. Tim Weah, we know he's not going to play elsewhere because the red card. Just to sum it up, guys, Uruguay at this price, being able to get them with the insurance in case of a draw, too good to pass up. Marco faded Canada's only team on Canada Day in baseball. I feel bad about fading America on 4th of July week, but it is what it is. Take Uruguay, draw no bet.
So I know that there are a lot of newbies when it comes to football betting here in the U.S. Talk about the two-way bet versus the three-way bet. When you're scrolling on your odds screen, what do you click? How do you find? How do they bet it exactly the way that you say to bet it, Bryan?
Okay, so if you go to the default on our odds screen, for instance, on the way is the three-way line, which means you could bet one of three outcomes. In this case, Uruguay to win, the USA to win, or the draw. Okay, what I'm recommending to do, the two-way line, is the draw no bet. Now, it's a spread of 0, basically. Sometimes when you click spreads on our odds screen, you'll see a plus half a goal. You know, if in the domestic leagues, if it's one of the better teams against one of the lousier teams, you can see plus 1.5, plus 2. Even in these tournaments, you can see that. But in this, when you go to spread, so what we're doing here is we're betting Uruguay not on the three-way line, where if it was a draw, like I said, that's a loss. Because if you bet the three-way line and Uruguay is around plus 80, plus 190 there, obviously great odds if they win. But if it's a draw, you don't win. The way we're betting on the two-way line, a win, okay. It's basically on even money, a little bit of plus money. But if it's a draw, we have that insurance where it's a push. So that's, to me, it's kind of like, do you take the run line versus, a fat underdog on the money line in baseball? I know Trig's a big fan of taking the 1.5. Maybe he's got one of those today. Maybe he doesn't. Not apples to apples, but it's similar. And we just have a little bit of insurance in case of a draw because Uruguay, all they need is a draw tonight, Teddy. So it's good insurance. I think they're going to win anyway. So good bet, I think.
Yeah, and Bryan, we're going to talk about Euro Cup now also, which goes tomorrow on Tuesday afternoon, Austria, Turkey. You're looking at the total in this, so give us your analysis, your play here, but also explain how the total lines can be different in soccer. We all understand 2.5 like this game, but sometimes there's a quarter, right? And explain that one. That probably tricks people also with soccer totals.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot here we're running through. So the U.S. match actually tonight is a good example. If you look at you'll see a 2.25. What that means is it's a split wager between over 2 and over 2.5. So let's say you bet over 2.25, and the match ends up with 2 total goals. It's that you would lose half of your stake because you pushed on 2, you lost 2.5. You lost 2.5. You'll also see 2.75 sometimes. So if you bet, let's say, the under 2.75, and it winds up at 3 goals, again, you split your bet because you pushed on 3, and then you would have lost on under 2.5. So there's a lot in play, obviously, in soccer. A lot. If you're new, just stick with the program. I always like to provide a little analysis, make sure the people know what they're doing in my analysis, no matter if we're playing side or total. We are lucky here, though, guys, because in Austria, Turkey, it is 2.5. So that is very simple for the folks. And I think we're getting 3 goals in this game. Austria, they were surprise Group D winners. They scored 3 goals themselves. Each of their 2 wins, those were against Poland and the Netherlands. I expect them to find the back of the net a couple times here. Turkey conceded at least 1.68 XGA. That's expected goals allowed, the top metric in soccer. In every match during the group stage, in their lone loss, they gave up 3 actual goals to Portugal. So a little leaky there at the back end. In every match involving Turkey, whether they've won or lost, we've seen at least 3 total goals scored. They put up 3 themselves against Georgia. Then I cashed over 2.5 in the match against Czech Republic, which was a 2-1 final. Their goalkeeper, he's battling through a knee injury. He's probably going to play, but it's just something to note there. Now with Austria, their drawback is they conceded at least once in every group match as well. They're now at 5.0 expected goals allowed for the tournament. That's definitely a concern. Even in the 1-0 loss to France, lone goal was an own goal. They were giving up plenty of chances. So I think we're going to see plenty of goals here. Both teams should score, and they should combine for at least 3 goals in 90 minutes plus stoppage time. That's another rule we need to note with soccer, that when we're making these bets, it's 90 minutes plus stoppage time. Because now we're into the round of 16 here in the Euro Cup. I had the under 2.5 with England yesterday. That was a winner because the 3rd goal did not come till added time. So make note of that as well. When these teams met in a friendly a few months back, guys, Austria scored 6 times themselves. That's not going to happen again, but we don't need 6 goals from one side. We only need 3 from the 2 of them. Over 2.5. Only way to go for Austria and Turkey.
Bryan Power likes the over 2.5 Austria, Turkey in soccer action for Tuesday. Brian, you've got a great promo for your soccer. Talk about it right now and tell us, is that the way to go, or is it the 7 for 7 all access pass the way to go? $49 for the next 7 days. You tell me.
Well, short term, obviously, it's hard to pass up getting 7 days of service for $49. But if you'd like to lock in for longer, the next 2.5 weeks through July 14th, which takes you all the way to the All-Star break in MLB, all the way through the Copa America, all the way through the Euro Cup. Right there on your screen, you can see the special offer. You can get all of my MLB, all of my soccer for $149 for the next 2.5 weeks. So whether you're looking short term, whether you're looking long term, we've got you covered. Guys, it has been a tremendous run in soccer. I alluded to it at the start. 28-9 run on the pitch. We are seeing it well in both the Euro Cup and Copa America. Number 1 last 3 days, number 1 last 7 days, number 1 last 30 days in soccer, number 1 going back to mid-April. So we're feeling it, and I gave you the side in USA Uruguay. I've got to play on the total tonight. You can find it on my page, wt.buzz/BP.
It's BP, Bryan Power, WagerTalk.com. And once again, don't forget that $49 7-day price is not the normal price. You can get it this week only. So don't think next week you can get another 7 for $49 and then another 7 for $49 and get 3 weeks for $149 versus his 2.5, because it's normally $99. So after this week, it's $99, $99, $198 for just 2 weeks after that. So it's a great time to lock up the 7-day. But if you're serious about a longer-term investment and getting the rest of his baseball through the first half and soccer along the way, then that special is going to save you more and make you more as well. Bryan Power. All right, Teddy, we got Adam Trigger coming up in a moment. Going to look at the other 2 baseball games for tonight on Monday. But let's talk some NFL first. I know you're deep diving into the NFL futures, NFL season win totals. You'll have your report up in the near future, no pun intended. What is something that's caught your eye so far while you're doing your homework? Something in the AFC, perhaps?
Well, I want to talk about the Indianapolis Colts today. But first, I do want to promo that season win report. 23 years I've been doing it. The results speak for themselves. 100 winners, 50 losers, 3 pushes. 67% over a 23-year span. The big tickets, 16-4 with the 5% plays. 80% over a 23-year span. It's been a consistently profitable report, and it comes out tomorrow, Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Get it? WT.buzz/TC. And unfortunately, this report does not come included in the 7-day all access pass. But again, that's 7 days for $7 a day. All access pass, $49 for the week, will include my 5% big ticket play and MLB for tonight. So there's something to be said for that package as well. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. 9-8 last year, 4-13 the year before, a 9-win team the year before that. So which one's the aberration? The 4-win team from 2022 or the 9-win team from last year? We think about the Colts as a very successful organization, and yet no AFC South titles since 2014 when Andrew Luck was their quarterback. The offseason, the organization's fairly stable. You know, Shane Steichen back for his 2nd year. Most of his coaching staff returned. The GM, Chris Ballard, in his 8th season. This is not an unstable coaching situation / front off situation. And the offseason for Indy was much more about re-signing their own than making big moves for free agents. They re-signed 7 key players, didn't bring in all that much. But of course, this is a team that won 9 games last year, despite having a starting quarterback and only played 4 of them. All right, and Anthony Richardson. Richardson had off-season shoulder surgery. He is supposed to be at 100%. How good is he going to be? He flashed brilliance last year, and he also looked like a rookie, and he didn't get many rookie reps in, considering. So does he play like a rookie? Does he play like a stud? There are questions about Richardson. There's potential for him, but he's certainly not a done deal. Joe Flacco was signed to be his backup, 39 years old. Flacco had a miracle run last year, then he threw 2 pick sixes in the playoff game. The one thing I'll give him credit for, Flacco's not afraid to throw downfield. And when you have Jonathan Taylor running the football and you have a loaded receiving core, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, the number 2 pick, Adonai Mitchell, Jelani Woods, who was hurt all last year at tight end, the offensive line, the starting 5 returns. This offense has real potential. All right. Indy could score points in bunches. Now, defensively, there are some questions. All right. They did re-sign DeForest Buckner. The number one pick, Laitulea from UCLA, an edge rusher who should provide some immediate impact. The secondary was awful last year. I'm not sure how much it's going to be better. Depth is a concern just about everywhere on this team. They are not loaded with quality depth. From a schedule standpoint, the league's kind of burying Indy. Their first 10 games all at 1 o'clock Eastern time. They're going to play one Sunday night football. That's it. When you talk about schedule strength, AFC South teams play NFC North, a tough division. AFC East, a tough division, a relatively tough division. There are 3 extra games. Pittsburgh, at Denver, at the New York Giants, relatively easy. I lean Indy over, all right, over 8.5 wins. I'm not going to get there with it. This is going to stay a lean and not a play. There's one little hidden factor in their schedule that really stands out, and it's a big issue. They have 4 different games where they have 2 or more fewer days of rest than their opponent. Twice, teams have a full extra week to face them. And when you have 4 different games where your opponent has a rest edge, it turns those 50-50s into 33-66s in a lot of. And from a schedule standpoint, look, they could/should be dogs 8 or 9 of their first 11 games before the bye. It eases up down the stretch. They have Chicago at home, Pittsburgh at home, and Minnesota at Mini is 3 games where they could be chalk in. But the bottom line is we think Indy's pretty good. We ain't getting to the window betting Indy over. Just one of 32 teams we're breaking down right now for the Win Report at WagerTalk.com. There's your big game breakdown. Mr. Merrill, back to you, my friend.
Yeah, and if you think Teddy's not doing his homework, he's doing his homework. That's a fantastic stat. I love that. 4 games against teams that have a 2+ rest edge. Very interesting stuff, and that's one of the reasons Teddy's gone 150 with a few pushes, 67% over 23 years. And look, if you're tying your bankroll up for 5, 6, 7 months, you need to have a substantial edge, more than just 55, 56%. You're tying it up for 3 hours tonight, I'll take a 54% edge, and roll it back over. But Teddy has that edge. He does quite a good job, to say the least. And I didn't realize it was coming out tomorrow, Teddy. So 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. You can purchase that at WagerTalk.com. Teddy covers. And Teddy, you buried the lead on the Colts handicap. 13 of the 17 starts last year. Gardner Minshew. Who wears short shorts? Minshew wears them, Teddy. And you can see it in Las Vegas this year as he is now on your Las Vegas Raiders. They went 7-6, by the way. Threw for over 3,300 yards. But he is now with the Raiders. So that's a quarterback that is out of the rotation after Richardson was injured. Lean towards the over for the Colts, but not an official play. And Teddy will be breaking down a ton of these other leans as well, I have a feeling, here over the next several weeks on Wager Talk Today.
Just real quick, I'm doing a series. I'm going to preview all 32 NFL teams. One video a piece. It's going to be like about 8, 10, 12-minute videos. And we'll be starting to record those next week. So we'll have a whole bunch of those coming out for you guys that'll be ready right around the All-Star break.
Awesome. And you're doing the homework. You might as well make it count, right? So once again, previews for all 32 NFL teams here on Wager Talk TV. Yet another reason to hit subscribe and click the bell as well. You will get an instant alert when your favorite team's video is locked and loaded here on Wager Talk TV. You also would have got an instant alert earlier today when our next guest, Adam Trigger, and myself, Steve Merrill, were on with Dan Alexander, because starting today, July 1st, MLB First Pitch is live now at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And if you can't watch it live, don't worry. It is archived instantly afterwards. So that gives you another 3 hours of shelf life to view the show, and especially when there's daytime games like today. And Adam and I broke down Blue Jays Astros, but we're going to look at the other 2 games here on the network here on Wager Talk Today. And Adam, let's start off with the Mets and the Nats, the next game around 6:40 Eastern, I believe. By the way, all 3 games tonight are on MLB Network, national TV. And the reason it's a small card is because everybody plays this Thursday, July 4th. There are 15 games, all 30 teams are playing. So this is basically like a Thursday card. We have the 3 teams that have a 4-game series playing ahead of everybody else that has a 3-game series. Canada Day, July 4th, Freaky Friday. It's all mismatched. But anyway, we've got James Wood debuting most likely tonight for the Nationals. 21-year-old prospect they picked up in the San Diego trade, Adam. You've actually seen him play up at Rochester AAA. He's the real deal. Will that be a spark for the Nats, or are the Mets the hottest team in baseball to play here to pick 'em price?
Yeah, Steve, long-term, there's no question. He's absolutely going to be a spark long-term for the Nationals. But as far as tonight is concerned, against the left-handed pitcher, I don't think he moves the needle a ton for this game. I think that's the big in for me for this handicap. And the way I would look to bet this game is the Mets have just been lighting up left-handed pitching. And Mackenzie Gore has really been a letdown for me. He's someone that I was super high on, coming into, he actually got traded from the Padres to the Nationals in the last big trade, in the Juan Soto deal. And, he's just never panned out. And he's someone I've come on and been wrong on these shows about for a couple of years now, because I have him as this like frontline guy. He really has not lived up to it. Tried to play him last week against the Padres. He goes 5 innings, 5 runs, 3 walks, 1 strikeout. And it's just the really good starts for him are like fewer and far between. He's just been really inconsistent. And the Mets, the way they hit left-handed pitching, the fact they hit him earlier this year, the Mets saw Mackenzie Gore about 3 or 4 weeks ago. He went 4 1/3, 6 runs, 4 walks, just 2 strikeouts. Leads me to believe that the Mets are probably the correct side here. Francisco Lindor is red hot in his last 37 at-bats against left-handed pitching. He's got 15 hits. That's a .405 batting average. And, if you go back to the series that these two teams played a couple weeks ago and the Mets swept the Nationals, they scored 23 runs on 37 hits. And a big reason for that is the Nationals' whole staff, or majority of their staff right now, is left-handed pitchers. Gore, DJ Hurst, Mitchell Parker, Patrick Corbin, it's all lefties. So there's, it's kind of not a surprise that the Mets had success there. And I could see them continuing to have success against Mackenzie Gore here. Now, David Peterson's interesting because he's someone that I've kind of had circled as a play-on guy. He had surgery in the offseason to repair a torn labrum in his hip. And I got to see one of his rehab appearances up here in Syracuse. And he talked to the local media, and he said something really interesting in the respect that he was pitching pain-free for the first time in years. Now, the reason that's notable to me, guys, is this is a former first-round pick from the 2017 draft that really has never reached he's never fulfilled first-round pick potential at any point in his career. Got called up in 2020. He did have a good season, I want to say 2021 or 2022, but he's really never panned out like you would expect a first-round pick to have panned out. But then he says something like that, well, he's been pitching through pain for years, and it kind of had me, looking for a spot to play on him. Now, the Mets have been winning when he goes to the mound in spite of him a little bit. It's not like he's been lights out, but his most recent start, he did have a season-high 5 walks, but he did also have a season-high 8 strikeouts, and it was against the Yankees. It tells me that, he was probably trying to hit corners. That's a really good Yankees lineup, and I think it's a simple adjustment. I mean, the Nationals, even with a hitting prospect like Wood coming up, not going to strike fear into an opposing pitcher the same way the Yankees will. So I think it's an easy adjustment for him. I think he's a little bit more around the plate, and I expect him to have success here. So it's not something that made my client card because I do long-term have liked Gore, and I do like James Wood and think that'll help the Nationals going forward. But for this game, the Mets are the better bet. -110, -115 is how I would play this one.
So you talked a lot about the lineups and the starting pitching. What about the Mets bullpen? The Mets bullpen cost him the game yesterday. They cost him the game on Saturday. Is it a bullpen we can trust to get the outs they need to record the victory tonight?
Teddy, that's such a good question, and it's such a hard question to answer because the Mets have great relievers. If you were just to look at their relievers and take out all the other numbers and just look at them as individuals, that should be a very good bullpen. It was a very good bullpen for the first 6 weeks of the season. And for most of June, they were really good, right? If you look at what they did in May, blowing all those games, June was a pretty good month for the Mets bullpen up until a couple days ago. I mean, the Mets ended up with the second best record in the majors in June. And they really didn't start blowing games again until this past weekend. But you can't ignore the fact that they have really struggled in high leverage spots at times. That's when they seem to have a hard time, is when the game is on the line. And it's definitely something that, needs to be acknowledged. But for me, I still see the relievers as individuals, and every individual reliever in that bullpen, in my opinion, is a plus guy. So I expect the Mets bullpen to be fine. I can't explain why they choke away games in big spots, but this bullpen is a good bullpen. And I'm going to continue to treat them like that and just hope they don't blow the game when I'm on them, because it's really tough to explain that they have as many blown saves as they do, because they really should be much better based on the caliber of pitcher in that bullpen.
Adam Trigger talking MLB, and of course Adam and I and Dan Alexander broke down all three of these games in a full 30-minute show. MLB first pitch earlier today at the new time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. You can watch the replay here anytime, 24. Make sure you click on the bell for instant alerts when shows go live, but you can always check back for them here archived on WagerTalk TV. And it is ironic that Gore's going tonight, Adam, because you're right. He was part of that 6-for-2 trade with the Padres in August of 2022. C.J. Abrams, the I'd say maybe star shortstop now for the Nats, was also part of that trade. And James Wood, the 21-year-old, making his debut tonight at Nats Park against the Mets. All right, one other game tonight, the third game on MLB Network at 8:40 Eastern, Milwaukee Brewers at the Colorado Rockies. And you said earlier on MLB First Pitch, you think the Rockies are probably the worst team in baseball. But, maybe this is a spot which isn't great for Milwaukee. How are you handicapping this one?
Yeah, Steve, I mean, the Rockies are historically bad, or at least have the potential to have a historically bad season this year. But I do think getting a little bit lost in translation there is the fact that they still have pretty drastic home road splits. So if you go back to like most seasons prior, I bet you could pull up any Wager Talk show where there was a Rockies game and handicappers talking about the Rockies, and they're referencing the home road Rockies splits. Like it's pretty much been the thing for years, and it's still a thing, even though the Rockies are bad. That 16-24 at home sounds like it's not very good, but put it up against their 12-31 road record, and the numbers across the board are still better for the Rockies at home. It makes me think that there's still some value in backing the Rockies at home, especially against the plus 1.5 run line, because at Coors Field with a higher total, you tend to get a little bit of a discount on the juice on that plus 1.5. And that's what we have here. Minus 110, minus 115 earlier. You might have taken some money. I did see the Rockies take a little bit of money in the market, but that's kind of the way I would look at that. And the reason, I know you're going to ask me why the plus 1.5. For me, I don't like backing bad teams to have to win. I think that I'm far more willing to play a bad baseball team that I know is going to lose over 100 games if I'm getting the run cushion than just asking them to win, because let's be honest, bad baseball teams find a way to lose games. But Steve, yes, I do think it's a bad spot for the Brewers. The Brewers just took 2 of 3 from the Cubs over the weekend, division rival. They're now at their high water mark of the year, 50 and 34, 6.5 games in the lead in the NL Central. And now they've got to turn around, hit the road, and play the Rockies, right? Like, if there was ever a flat spot, it very well could be that. And Bryce Wilson's a guy that will give up contact. And as you both know, contact in Coors Field, just about anything can happen. And I find it interesting that Bryce Wilson's still being used as a starter because he's had such success in the bulk innings role. Here's the splits for him as a starter as opposed to being the bulk guy. In 9 starts, he's got a 4.75 ERA. When they use an opener ahead of him, and then he comes in as the bulk guy, his ERA is 2.01. So I don't really know how to explain that, but he struggled as the starter. He's been much better as the bulk innings guy, and he is going to start tonight. So I do think if he gives up some contact, the Rockies can generate some offense. And, they get Charlie Blackmon back. I know it doesn't sound like a big deal, but the veteran Charlie Blackmon, before he got hurt, was one of the most consistent hitters in that Rockies lineup this year. So maybe a little bit of a boost for the Rockies with Blackmon back in the lineup. Austin Gomber, you want to talk about splits. He had the best month of his life in May. I guarantee Austin Gomber has not had a better month of baseball at any level than he had in May with the Rockies, 0.68 ERA in 4 starts. And he did the exact inverse of that in June. 5 starts, his ERA was close to 10. I don't think he's a 1 ERA guy. I don't think he's a 10 ERA guy. He probably falls in the middle somewhere. But he's certainly capable of having a good start. His last start against the Astros, he gave up 5 runs in the first inning, and then he pitched into the 6th. He didn't give up anything the rest of the game. Settled in pretty nicely. So, again, there's 3 games on the board today. This is probably my least favorite of the 3. But if I had to play here, I would take the 1.5 with the Rockies. I just think it's not the best spot for the Brewers.
Adam Trigger, what do you have going on at WagerTalk.com right now?
Yeah, so June was a great month for me. 33-14. I hit 70.2% of my plays for 68.7 units. Needed a good one of those. I had one equally as bad back in January. We always want to make sure we take the bad with the good, and I hope I can keep the good going into July. Right now, I've got 7 straight winners. I'm going for an 8th straight winner tonight. It's a WNBA play that goes at 10 p.m. WNBA so far this year, I've hit 57.9% of my plays, 11, 8, and 1. Hope to get another winner and make it 8 straight tonight. No MLB for me today, but I did just recap 2 games, and I agree with Marco. I think the Astros are probably the best game on the board. I talked about that on First Pitch, so if you want to see my breakdown of the Astros game, go check out First Pitch. I was on with Steve Merrill and Dan Alexander when we broke that game down as well.
That's right. New start time, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. First Pitch, WagerTalk Today, 12 noon Eastern, as always. That's a hell of a double play for the rest of the baseball season here on WagerTalk TV, Monday through Friday. Teddy's got a huge 5%er going tonight for 35, but the better deal is to get that along with a full 7 days from Teddy and any other capper you want for just 49. It's our July 4th special. It's good all week. You have until this Sunday to make the 7-day purchase. But why wait? Get on board now and get these strong best bets. I've got a strong baseball play going tonight as well, and I'm seeing it well on a 17-7 run and also a longer-term 22-9 hot streak in all sports over the past month. So check those out. Adam Traeger, Steve Merrill, Teddy Covers, Bryan Power, Marco D'Angelo, and everybody else at WagerTalk.com. 7 days for just $49. That's an instant 50% discount off the normal weekly rate. Teddy, the Prez will be back tomorrow after Canada Day is complete. We almost got Canadian free in the zone, but Carmine Bianco just chimed into the live chat like 30 seconds ago. So it was almost Canadian free, but it's seriously happy Canada Day to everybody out there. And I will be on tomorrow as a guest with you, Teddy, and the Prez to keep everybody honest. Take us home.
Yeah. We'll see if I pull an all-nighter. So there's something about releasing that win report, dude. That always it's always just like it feels like finals week back in college, and I enjoy that at least 1 week a year. That's going to wrap it for the issue. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same channel, right here on WagerTalk TV. Between now and then, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your bets.